Right, Shalom. First, I'd like to give all praises unto Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahushai, and double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and honors to you brothers out there in the highways and the byways teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. And pretty much, I just want to speak on this interview here that was done with the Enola Gay, the last living member of the Enola Gay, which was the crew that dropped the bomb in Hiroshima, man. And I want to start with this scripture, man, because see, the so-called white man, man, he basically, man, he's always going to try and paint himself to be the hero. He's always going to try and justify himself and just chop and change history to always make himself smell of roses, man, or look like a benevolent being, man. You know, someone that's, you know, full of love. But the actual fact is that he's a hateful bastard, man, that does nothing but cause death and destruction to the people of the earth. And his only desire is to gain. All right. He cares not for anyone else but himself, and he lacks mercy. And that's why he's going to receive judgment without mercy, man, of the Heavenly Father. Now, this is Psalms 36:2. It says, "For he flattereth himself in his own eyes." These so-called white people, in their own eyes, they think they're a good people. They think that they're civilized the world. They think that they've done good for the planet, which they've not. But that's the flattery that they do. You watch their movies, you watch their TV programs. They're doing nothing but flattering themselves in their own eyes. Until what? Until his iniquity be found to be hateful. Because at the end of the day, man, the truth of who he is and what he has done on this earth, all right, beginning with the American Edomite, is going to be made known to all throughout the ages, man. From now and forevermore, man. The memorial of the so-called white one will be that of what he is, the devil that the Bible speaks of. Now, when you go into the World War II, what they don't ever like to tell you is what happened leading up to Pearl Harbor. See, they'll make it look like in their movies that the Japanese just went crazy and they just wanted to destroy America. No, the Japanese were basically fighting back against Western imperialism, man, in the East, which had begun a long time ago with the British. And they were basically trying to conquer the region to basically put the power of the region back into the hands of the people of the East. Right? You go into the Great East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. Yeah, it says it was an imperial concept created and promulgated for occupied Asian populations during 1930 to 1945 by the Empire of Japan. It extended greater than East Asia and promoted the cultural and economic unity of Northeast Asians, Southeast Asians, and South Asians and Oceanians. It also declared the intention to create a self-sufficient bloc of Asian nations led by the Japanese and free of the Western powers. So they were basically, you know, which they did some atrocities and so forth, but they were, because I ain't trying to, what's it called? What's the word again? Basically, I'm trying to sugarcoat the Japanese like they were some fairies or something like that, like, you know, soldiers of righteousness. But at the end of the day, that region of the world, that's their region of the world. The so-called white man was all the way on the other side of the world. What the hell was he doing over there in the first place? You understand? And that goes back into the scripture in Habakkuk. He don't keep at home. This man, why the hell did they have a military base in Pearl Harbor? You know what I'm saying? It's this, you know, why were they occupying the Philippines? All right, this is Habakkuk. Sorry, not 3. Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. Habakkuk 2 and 4. It says, "For behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home." This man don't stick to his borders, man. Or even the borders he steals, he don't stick to them. He just wants to steal more. Who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as deaf and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. So at the end of the day, the so-called white man wanted to get the people of the East under his subjection, and that was the bottom line. Now when you go into, I got some quotes here. Alright, I'm only going to get a couple of these quotes. You can look up this video. It's called The Truth of World War II. What did Japan fight for? Alright. Now, this is from Herbert Hoover, 33rd President of the United States. It says, Pearl Harbor was a madman's plot for the U.S. to attack Germany. Roosevelt's total economic sanctions against Japan and his contemptuous refusal of the Japanese Prime Minister's peace proposal in September were the crucial precursors to the Pearl Harbor. Had we not provoked the Japanese, they would they would never have attacked us. Alright, because the Japanese weren't in the Western Hemisphere. They didn't roll up in the Western Hemisphere. Alright. We get the next one. It says, American people will be shocked to hear what I have discovered. Harry White, who wrote the ultimatum to Japan, the whole note was a Soviet spy. Nobody in the Congress knew of such a provocative note delivered to Japan, which was desperately trying to negotiate a peaceful solution with the United States. With the note, Japan was left with no choice but to fight back or starve to death. So these Americans, man, they didn't want no peace, man. They didn't want no peace. They wanted to put Japan and the nations in the East under their subjection. That was the goal, and they accomplished that. There is practically nothing indigenous to Japan except the silkworm. They lack cotton, they lack wool, they lack petroleum products, they lack tin, they lack rubber, they lack a great many other things, all which was in the Asiatic basin. If these supplies are shut off, any small country would go to war. Japan fought for its self-defense. The International Military Tribunal for the Far East was a mistake, and that was General Douglas MacArthur. So you see, look, man, there's another side to the story that Esau won't tell. But let's jump back to this devil, because we know in the end what happened. In the midst of the negotiating a surrender, Esau decided to drop 2 atomic bombs on Japan. For what reason? To make an example out of them for the rest of the world. That's all it was. Now they're going to try and justify it and say, oh, we were trying to stop. No, man. You dropped atomic weapons of mass destruction, regardless of the environmental effects it would have in Japan and across the world. And you started a trend of using these weapons that actually poison the people of the earth and poison the earth, man. You the devil. And you do that again. That's why, hey, the Lord said, hey, let's get this scripture right here. Because you devils, man, you were the first nation to use atomic weaponry. And you're going to be the last nation those same weaponries that you pioneered are going to be used on. Psalms 9 and 16. The Lord is known by the judgment which he executed. The wicked is snared in the work of his own hands. So you were the ones that pushed out the use of weapons of mass destruction and atomic weapons. You did that. Not Iran, not ISIS. You did that. Right? And that same spirit and vibration you pushed out is going to fall back on your own head. Now let's hear this devil. And by the way, I'm going to put the full interview up at the end of this video too.
Say about them.
Do you think that the Japanese people will ever be able to forgive the Americans after all this destruction in both Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Well, I don't know if they will or not. If I had been living in Hiroshima or Nagasaki at that particular time, I probably wouldn't forgive them either.
But you're damn right you wouldn't. The so-called white man don't forgive anybody, man. Alright, that's a fact. In fact, I might have to upload that Netanyahu speech, man. The so-called white man don't forgive anybody, man.
People suffered an awful lot. But whether they will accept it or not, dropping the atomic bomb saved their lives and our lives, Japanese lives.
So dropping
if we
the
had
atomic
had
bomb
to invade Japan.
Here we go, there was no way to avoid it. Look, this is what Esau does, man.
Would have been much.
If you watch this full interview, he actually says that the Japanese should be thanking them for dropping the bomb. This is how crazy these people are. These guys don't give a damn.
Much higher. And our casualties would have been terrific. They're still giving out Purple Hearts that were made to give out in the invasion.
Yeah, and they're still giving birth to mutated children. Cancer rates went up all over the world. You the devil, man.
Even in Japan, we still haven't used up all the Purple Hearts that were manufactured at that time.
And then he goes as far as to say, and this is why, man, the Lord has got something for America, man. It's coming. Let me play this.
You were given the same order. They said, go drop an atomic bomb on whatever city. Would you do it again? God forbid. And you were... My last question for you. If World War III broke out today, God forbid, and you were given the same order, they said, go drop an atomic bomb on whatever city, would you do it again?
If everything was exactly the same as it was then. That's the point. I know it's not possible to really duplicate things that precisely, but if the same situation existed again, exactly as it had back in 1945, yes, I would go on it.
Well, I'm glad you said that because, hey, the Yahweh Shai, man, is going to destroy you and your children in the shores of America, man, by way of thermonuclear destruction, man. Okay, Ecclesiastes 10:8, he that diggeth a pit shall fall into it, and whosoever breaketh an hedge, a serpent shall bite him, man. These devils, man, they did all that time and research and putting it into these weapons of mass destruction, man. But they going to fall into that same pit that they dug, man. Alright? This man was set up to do nothing but take peace from the earth, man. And you can see that in his spirit. But the Lord is going to take peace away from him. Revelation 7:4, and there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. All these wars, man, it all goes back to the so-called white man and his greed. All these wars. Yeah? But they try and make it look like there's some kind of justification for the things they do. They're the victim or something, man, from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and it was given unto him a great sword, and that's that weapon of mass destruction. He got that great sword, but that great sword is going to turn around and fall upon his own head. Right? And like I said, it is completely fitting that America be destroyed by thermonuclear destruction, man. Evidently. So, hey, check out the interview, man. And with that, I'm going to say shalom.
Today, only one of these 12 crew members of the Enola Gay lived to tell the story. I'm joined by that man today, Theodore Van Kirk. So if you could now, take us through the steps of that fateful day.
Well, that day wasn't the important day because the bomb was dropped by 9:15 and 8:15 in the morning, Tinian time, 9:15 Tinian time, 8:15 Hiroshima time. So it was all over by then. But the day before was the important day because you have to go back and realize what happened during this period. The bomb was developed by the Manhattan Project. There were hundreds of thousands of people working on the Manhattan Project. They built 3 cities, here in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, Los Alamos, New Mexico, and Hanford, Washington, just to research how to make the bombs and make the materials then from which to make the bombs. So this effort had been going on a long time, ever since the beginning of the war, when Einstein wrote a letter to Franklin Roosevelt saying that it might be possible to make an atomic weapon. So all this had been going on, and we had started preparing to drop the atom bomb in the fall of 1944 before we even had a bomb. We were, if you were a poker player, you'd say you're betting on the come. So that's what happened. And then they had a test of one of the first atomic bombs in Alamogordo, New Mexico, on July 16th of 1945. After that, everything started getting hotter and everything of that type. And we knew we were going to have a weapon to drop, so then we had to prepare we had already been preparing to drop it. So if we didn't know how to drop it by this time, we never would. So the day before, we had a briefing in the morning, and then they told you to go back and get some sleep because you're going to take off at 2:45 a.m. Everything started at 2:45. And so then you went back and to get some sleep, and nobody slept. How do they expect to tell you you're going out and drop the first atomic bomb and then go get some sleep? At 8 o'clock at night, they came and got us finally, and then took us over and gave us the final breakfast in this sort of business. I call it the final breakfast, so they call it the mission breakfast. And then over to the final briefing, where they gave you the latest metro data, told you where all the air sea rescue ships were, and everything of that type. Any final things that they needed to know. So then we finally finished all that. We got in the airplane and took off. Very simple.
I mean, once you got up in the plane, what was it like? How were you feeling?
It was easy, because everything went exactly according to plan. There wasn't a surprise in a whole bunch. And with what we had prepared for and had been expecting and everything of that type all this time, you could see you could see the coast of Japan from a good 200 miles away. Well, maybe 100 miles away. You could see the city of Hiroshima from 50 miles away. So you just went in and turned on to the bomb run, and by this time it was in the bombardier's hands, and you sat there and waited for the drop. And when the drop came, the plane surged because you'd suddenly lost 9,400 pounds, and Tibbets took over manual control again and made the turn to get away from the bomb. The biggest thing that we were concerned about was, is this bomb going to work? Because this was a bomb that had never been tested. This was a uranium-235 bomb that had never been tested. The one they tested was a plutonium bomb. So was it going to work or wasn't going to work? And it took 45 seconds from the time the bomb left the airplane until it exploded. Everybody was sitting there timing it in some way, shape, or form. I had a watch, so I knew what the time was. The other people were counting 1001, 1002, and so forth. And suddenly the bomb went off, and you saw a bright flash of light in the airplane, so you knew the thing had worked. And the only question then was, what was it going to do to the airplane? So we were going away from it at this time. We got putting distance between us and the bomb, kept that up. After a very short time, we got the first shock wave, which was measured about 3.5 Gs. You're up there in Washington, you know all these military people. You know what a 3G is and everything of that type. So it doesn't seem like much to a fighter pilot, but if you're in a B-29 at 30,000 feet, it seems like a hell of a job. So then we turned around after we weren't sure we weren't going to get any more shock waves. We turned around to look what had happened, and the shock wave of the city of Hiroshima was completely covered with smoke and dust. And you knew a tremendous amount of damage had been done underneath that cloud there and everything, but you could not see what it was.
When they tested the first atomic bomb in New Mexico, as you mentioned, Robert Oppenheimer, who's of course the mastermind behind the Manhattan Project, I read a quote from him and he said, few people cried, most were silent. How did you feel when that bomb detonated?
I was happy it worked. That's number one. We had been in a long war. We had been attacked by the Japanese. The Japanese people were not nice people in those days. My next door neighbor, who was a prisoner of war all the time, has more stories about this to tell than I can tell. But we had the Bataan Death March, all the casualties we took down in the Solomons and this sort of thing. The policy of the United States government at that time was to subdue the nation of Japan. And I was willing to do anything I could do to help that out. And that was my policy also, the country was trying to subdue Japan, and I was trying to also subdue Japan. Let me make one comment here. The Japanese you know today are not the Japanese we fought during World War II. The Japanese of today are nice people and everything of that type. We've had Japanese students living with us in our homes out in California for many, many years. And I couldn't ask for better. But the Japanese during World War II were not that nice of people. And that's all I'll say about them.
Do you think that the Japanese people will ever be able to forgive the Americans after all this destruction in both Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Well, I don't know if they will or not. If I had been living in Hiroshima or Nagasaki at that particular time, I probably wouldn't forgive them either, because those people suffered an awful lot. But whether they will accept it or not, dropping the atomic bomb saved their lives and our lives, Japanese lives. If we had had to invade Japan, the Japanese casualties would have been much, 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 much higher. And our casualties would have been terrific. You know, they're still giving out Purple Hearts that were made to give out in the invasion of Japan. We still haven't used up all the Purple Hearts that were manufactured at that time. It was not a nice war. 50 million people got killed during World War II, and they all have bad stories to tell about it.
In hindsight, do you think that there was any way to avoid using the atomic weapon, any other options that would have achieved the same goal?
3 main options. One was to put a blockade around Japan and starve the people to death. How do you starve people to death that are already living on 1,000 calories? You can't do it. Then the other 2 options were drop the atomic weapons or put a full-scale invasion into Japan. The atomic weapons would have resulted in less casualties overall than if the invasion of Japan would have done. And if you ask any GI, ask anybody that was in the service over the Pacific, and they love the atomic bomb and everything. My next door neighbor came over here when he found out what I did at dropping the atomic bomb. And he came over here at 6 o'clock one morning pounding on my door. Says, I just found out what you did. You saved my life. And I says, well, you pound on my door at 6 o'clock again. I won't save it. That's all I can say. But everybody who's in the Pacific at the time will come up to me and say, you saved my life.
Do you regret being on that mission that dropped the first ever atomic bomb?
I regret we ever had to have a mission. I regret every mission I had over Europe and everything of that type. I dropped a lot of bombs over there that killed people and probably killed civilians. But do I regret the atomic mission? I regret we had to do it. There's a fellow here the other day, and what was it? He was saying that the Japanese should apologize to us for making us drop the atomic bomb. That was a new twist on things I've never heard before. But I regret that we had to do it, but I think we had to do it in order to end the war with a minimum loss of life.
So, of course, the issue of nuclear warfare is still very relevant today as the threat of nuclear war still lingers. Is there anything that you would like to say to the politicians today that are in control of the world's nuclear stockpiles?
I say that any politician, any diplomat, anybody in any area of authority today, I would like never to see another atomic weapon used, but I'm afraid we're going to. We will not see it by Russia, or we will not see it by the major powers or anything else. I dread the day when the terrorists are going to get nuclear weapons, because they are not near as thoughtful of the consequences of nuclear bombings as we are, as major powers are. And they will toss them around like matchsticks, I'm afraid.
My last question for you. If World War III broke out today, God forbid, and you were given the same order, they said, go drop an atomic bomb on whatever city, would you do it again?
If everything was exactly the same as it was then, that's the point. I know it's not possible to really duplicate things that precisely, but if the same situation existed again, exactly as it had back in 1945, yes, I would go on it. I would volunteer for it, as a matter of fact. I'd want to go on it.